So emulating apparently is a topic that I personally didn't know was something that was like really really big in gaming. Apparently you have the sides of some people saying emulating is a horrible thing and should be taken out back in the old yellow because it really really hurts the development the devs of games and stuff like that. So you really shouldn't do it. Then you have other sides that say like, hey, bump it. You know, if I could snatch it for the free 99, oh well. Or some who just say like, hey, once a game gets past a certain age and you know it really is not making the dev team or the company any money anymore, kind of like Melee and stuff like that, then it really shouldn't matter. So, what are you guys' opinions on this? Starting with you, Mr. Gamer Lift. Do you feel like emulating is a good thing, bad thing? Great thing. Give us your opinion.
Um, I think it's a pretty good thing. And I mean, I guess I'm a little biased because I like to be able to go back and play a lot of games that I might not got a chance to. And that's the thing about emulation. You have this like I've done a like when I was in high school, like the most emulation I did was like I had a emulation CD that my brother made me use like NES games, and I had one with like GBA games. And that was some of the best times of my life. Just having this whole collection of stuff that you never played before. I always want to play this game on Game Boy Advance. Never got a chance to, or never saw it on sale, and you get to play it. Um, it's one of those things where you just like it's just a wide variety of like things. You just like, man, I really want to play these, but just never got a chance to. But let me say this right here. You just mentioned Melee. It's weird, like and of course Nintendo is probably the most notorious for this. They don't want you doing anything with nothing of theirs. Um, so like if you say, oh, we don't want you emulating the game, let's say if Melee was emulated, was are you giving them an option to play the game elsewhere? Like, are you giving them the option to buy it on like a e-store or something? Like to preserve that game and allow those people that really like want to play the game and to help build up your company and like bring this game to like unseen heights. Like if you're gonna talk about emulation as a problem in a sense, like just give them a legit way to play it instead of being like, no, you can't do nothing with the game. No, it's it. Like, so that's to me is kind of weird. And again, like I said, I think that's most Nintendo. Maybe I should have said it a little quieter. They might be at my door in any second now. But
It's good knowing you.
it's just like I think it's cool, man. You get to play a lot of games, and there's some games that like you just never see on sale, or if you do go buy them, they cost an arm and a leg. Especially a lot of classics like PlayStation One games, even stuff before that. Some games are super expensive. Um, like Marvel's Capcom 2. Let's say that game had never been re-released again, or whatever. I think the PS2 version was like, from what I've seen, well over $100. I think on like eBay and online. I'm like, bruh, I like the game, but I don't know if I'm paying that much for it. And some games even more than that. You like, bruh, like I'm not about to pay this. Like, and I guess you can look at it from a collector standpoint. Like these games age, and some games like they have a high value, but still, it's like that's a lot to be put out on one game. You know, and I know like even now, like it's kind of getting to the point where you don't really have a lot of emulation that's like legit from companies. Like even PlayStation is like now closing the stores. Also, a lot of games that people like might want to play or get, they can't get them anymore. So the only way now that you could probably possibly play them is if you already have them or you emulate them. And I do feel like at a certain point, if somebody's emulating Super Mario Brothers from the NES, is that really hurting the bottom line? Well, y'all have made like there's a million Mario games, new games coming out. Is that really hurting anything? And I know normally they say like if you emulate, like if you have the game, and it's cool to emulate, but it's like also if I have the game, why would I emulate it? On the other side of it, it's like if you don't have that system, if you got the game but you don't have the system, that makes sense. So it's like if I emulate Breath of Fire 3 and I actually have the disc, then that's technically legal. But if I don't, it's not. It's like I don't know. I feel like there should be some type of give us like a collection of games. Like I know the developers probably won't really make time for this, but if you want it to be legit, like there's a lot of games that people would like to play, myself included. Still, so many games and countless games that I would like to go back and revisit. And really, the only way I can do that is through emulation, or like I said, go on eBay and pay $1 million for one copy of a game. So I don't think emulation is too bad of a thing. Um, as long I guess there's like a fine line and a gray area with everything, but I don't think anything's wrong with emulation. Maybe since I'm not a developer or publisher, I don't know the ins and outs, so maybe it would be worse if I were. But if I'm a developer, or something, I'm like, man, these people love my game so much they still want to play it. They can't buy it. Like, it's not like they can buy it anywhere, but they still want to play this game. I'm like, let them play it, man. That's my opinion on emulation, man. Especially with fighting games. I want to say that real quick. There's a lot of fighting games, nuanced and niche fighting games that you've never heard about before, and you will never be able to play again because you don't have the consoles, or they were in arcades, and then arcades don't exist anymore. Main. So there's a lot of fighting games you can go back and play only through emulation. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that. I think emulation isn't that bad, actually. I remember when I was a kid coming up, and I discovered through one of my friends the power of the ZSNES emulator, and there were a plethora of games that I'd never played before. I actually played Fatal Fury for the first time on the ZSNES. I played a few games that were like, some games were easier to emulate than others. There's games like Star Ocean, like the very first Star Ocean. That was extremely difficult, at least for me as a kid, to emulate, because in addition to having to download the emulator and download the game, you had to download a graphics pack and then patch that, I think the graphics pack in, and I think the game wasn't even really translated at that point either. So then you had to get like the translation patch, and basically you had to do all this stuff that you really, at least in my opinion, as a kid, you shouldn't have to do in order to play a game, because you're still in the kind of mindset of plug and play. So there's a whole lot that goes into it. When in reality, all like the developer or the publisher could just re-release the game. Years later, I remember Star Ocean was re-released in a cleaner looking version on the PlayStation Portable. They did that for the first and the second game. And it's kind of like, wow, like, why didn't you guys you didn't need to wait until the PlayStation Portable to release this. You could have done this way back when on like the PlayStation or something like that. I would have taken the exact same version of the game just on an earlier system. Like you could have given me the SNES version on the PlayStation and I would have been just fine. But instead, like if you were waiting legitly, because I can't even remember, man, like there are some games like Bahamut Lagoon that didn't even come out here in the United States. And that's a game that you definitely had to download, and then you had to patch, had to get the Japanese to English patch. By the way, those patches, it's not like those just exist naturally within nature. Those are things that people go like painstakingly create. Like people go in and they translate the dialogue and the menus and everything, and they translate those and they make those into a patch so you can do it. So you can just go in and patch the game and play the game. And they're not making it, let's be honest, like Bahamut Lagoon, they're not making any money off of that game here in the United States. Now they definitely could have. I don't think they sold it here. They didn't sell it on the Wii Shop channel or anything like that. I don't think they've ever sold it here in the United States. So that is a game that they could have made money off of. They could still make money off of, that they, for some reason, they're not going to do. Same thing with a game like Racing Lagoon. Like they could have made money off of that game. That's a game that unfortunately didn't make a whole lot of money. They didn't sell very well in Japan. The thing about it is when they have a game that doesn't sell well in Japan and they're like, oh, well, I guess we're just not going to sell it anywhere else. It's like, you got to think outside of like where you live, because over here in the States, like a show, I don't know if anybody remembers the anime Initial D, but people love that anime here in the States. People love that. I have some friends who swear by that show. And to have a game, basically Racing Lagoon was like Initial D. It was like an Initial D video game. That game would have done fantastic over here. But because it didn't sell well in Japan, we never got to see it. And like the game exists on emulation, but nobody translated it. So, like that, one of the only ways to actually play it is by emulation. So in my opinion, I don't feel like emulation is that bad, because there's so many games that we've never gotten to play over here that were never even sold here, that they weren't even thinking about trying to make money off of. And then there are games that are really, really old that some people want to go back and play that they don't have the wherewithal to play with right now. You don't have the console, you don't have the game, what have you, but they're not making money off of those games either. And it's not necessarily our fault that they're not taking, I wouldn't even know if it's a risk, because it's not like the game, you have to develop the game. You've already developed the game. It's already been developed. They've already put in the work. You wouldn't even, it's just my opinion, you wouldn't even need to clean it up that much. Sometimes you just need to expose people to certain things to get people interested. And if you never expose them to it, they're not going to get interested, and they're not going to pay for it. So there's like you're shooting yourself in the foot by not exposing people to all these games that you have in your catalog that you already have been developed, have already been made, you know? So I mean I understand that they're like some of the newer games you're probably going to take a hit on if they're emulated because you know you're trying to make your money now. Like that's a completely different issue, and I agree that you probably shouldn't be emulating games that are just like that are extremely new. But as for old games that have already been made that are like 10, 15 years old that you're not even really like selling in some cases, I just don't see the problem, man. And so yeah, I would say for most of the time, emulation isn't that bad. I gotta tell you, I like if they really if like there's so many games that they're doing right now that they're technically emulating right now, like Saga Frontier just came out, like the remastered version. It's not like that game is like, you know, redeveloped. They're basically just emulating that game on the console. So, you know, they're emulating too. So it's I don't know, man. I just don't see emulation as that bad of a thing. So that's my opinion. I don't think it's that bad, really.
Well, the whole issue with emulation being like a hot topic and stuff like that, you know, people have their different sides. I really didn't even know it was that serious. Like the concept of emulating, I guess you could like sit back and think like, huh, maybe companies wouldn't like that, you know, but I didn't really think it was such a hot issue as it was. Um, I mean, I can see both sides. You know, most likely, you know, 8 times out of 10, if somebody's emulating a game, it's probably a game that they just don't have ease of access to. You know, something that you know, like I can't just easily go and pick up at my local GameStop if you still go there, or at your or at the online shop or something like that. So it's like, okay, if I can't get it there and I can't get it there, and I really want to play the game, I mean, I'm only left with certain options. I mean, when you know when we had the Wii and we put homebrew on it and stuff like that, and you wanted to go back and play like Sunset Riders, GoldenEye 007, and all this other stuff, it's like, so you telling me companies, you're telling me I'm supposed to go and find a working functioning Nintendo 64 and then somehow I'll go and find a functioning working copy of GoldenEye 007 and controllers and everything that goes with it and stuff like that to make sure it works and stuff. It's like I like at this point, if people are probably selling like Nintendo 64s, they probably got the price hiked up because they know it's like a nostalgia item. So they probably didn't shot it through the roof. As well as GoldenEye 007, because I ain't gonna lie, I'd probably pay some good money for the GoldenEye 007. I can't even lie. So I could see, you know, people just like, man, look, like I'm not trying to do that, you know, like I'm not. So emulating is the way that they're gonna go. But also I could see it from a company stand side of just like, hey, we need to make sure we limit what games can be emulated and stuff like that. Because if we have it for sale or in some way, form, or fashion, you need to go and get it directly from the source and not, you know, cut us out and stuff like that when we're the ones who made the game. But you know, places like Nintendo with Melee and stuff like that, I just don't know what you want us to do, bro. Like what you just want us to let the game perish just because you like, look, we playing Smash Ultimate now. You need to play Smash Ultimate. And it's like, well, you haven't created anything like Melee since Melee. So Melee, however you pronounce it. Like we want to play Melee. We want to play this. We want to play that. Like you gave us something with Melee. All right, here we go. It's finna start. You gave us something with Melee. Basically made this great game and stuff like that, and then go come later and be like, nah, it was an accident. It wasn't even supposed to be like that. You know, we was rushing and tired, thirsty, all that stuff, bro. You know, it wasn't even supposed to be like that. Come back and play this party game. No, we want to play Melee. We want to play a legit feeling like fighter with like that takes skill and all types of like, you know, stuff to get into the game and stuff. Like that's what we want to do. That's what you gave us. That's what we fell in love with. And now you're trying to retract it and take it back. So it's like, okay, like we want to support you. Like, yeah, we'll buy your games and stuff like that. But if we still want to go back and play Melee, like, why are you tripping on us? You're not even selling it. And then plus you telling us like, man, if you want to play it, go and find a GameCube and then go and find you a copy of Melee and play it, you know, off an emulator. And it's just like, bro, how, like, You know what you asking me? You might as well tell me go with Indiana Jones and find like the lost treasure. So, I just don't know what they want from. So in situations like that, and it makes it worse because Nintendo is really showing that like we will go out of our way to make sure y'all suffer for doing stuff we don't like y'all doing. So in cases like those, like I really just don't know what they want us for to do. I mean, you might can stop us like, hey, you won't be able to play like tournaments and stuff like that in. But at the end of the day, you're not gonna really stop people from playing it. And that's, I don't know if that's their real goal or they just don't care as long as you're not monetizing it in some type of way because they just want some of that money. But still, like, so I can get like both sides, but at the end of the day, you want to lean more towards the consumers because it's like, at the end of the day, if you're not giving us any options, like anybody would just go and make their own. Like we're not hurting you, playing a 15-year. Melee came out 20 years ago. Like, so are you serious? Like, you got so many games in between this that you made that you could possibly still, and you go do this stuff over a 20-year-old game? Come on, man. So, anybody else have anything to add?